Welcome to Campus Insiders Oregon. I'm Jill Savage alongside Justin Myers, and the big news after Oregon's bowl game is DeAnthony Thomas deciding to head over to the NFL. Now, Justin, when you look at DeAnthony, what are your first impressions with this?
Not surprised at all. I mean, by the end of the season, the way DeAnthony was playing, it looked as though he was well on his way to the NFL draft. And really, from the beginning of the year, a lot of people assumed that this was going to happen. So not at all surprised.
Let's look at the breakdown of DeAnthony Thomas's production. First of all, overall, 711 yards and 9 touchdowns on the season. Not a bad year. 22 receptions for 264 yards and 1 touchdown. So he wasn't as big of a wide receiver threat as we have seen in years past. But Justin, when you break it down game by game, those numbers are a little deceiving. You look, first of all, for the first 3 games that Oregon played, DeAnthony in that game opener against Nicholls State, he had 128 yards for 2 touchdowns. Nicholls State, 4-8 on the year. Virginia, 2-10 on the year. DeAnthony had 124 yards and 3 touchdowns. And finally, rounding out the first 3 games, Tennessee, who finished 5-7, DeAnthony put up 86 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, on the flip side, when you get into Pac-12 play and the bowl game, those numbers drastically different. UCLA, he only played in half of that game, but UCLA finished 10-3. He had 31 yards and a single touchdown. The Stanford game only had 30 yards. Arizona, 83 yards. Oregon State, that big Civil War game, 88 yards and 1 touchdown. And finally, in the bowl game, was not really a factor, only 13 yards against Texas. So Justin, what do you make of those numbers and DeAnthony Thomas's productivity this year?
Well, I think a lot of it can be attributed to the injury he faced against Cal on the kick return. And when he came back, I think he found what a lot of guys did. The guys behind him stepped up. You look at the best receiver on the team was Josh Huff, but Braylon Addison asserted himself as the second best receiver and maybe even a bigger go-to guy than Huff. At running back, Byron Marshall was easily the #1 running back by the time DeAnthony came back, and Thomas Tyner had started to get better and better each and every week. And I really think that ankle injury scared him a bit, and there was a growing, I think, disconnect between him and the coaching staff.
So overall, what's the impact of DeAnthony Thomas leaving for the Ducks?
It's tough to say, because I think a motivated DeAnthony Thomas playing wide receiver makes Oregon a very tough offensive team. But he didn't want to play wide receiver this year, and we saw it later on in the year. He did not seem very motivated. I think not too much of an impact on the field, because you've got Byron Marshall and you've got Thomas Tyner, who I think is going to be the #1 running back come the fall next year.
Now, DeAnthony will be joining the ranks with Chip in the NFL. How do you project that he'll do? He's a very small frame.
Yes.
This is what everyone's worried about.
Well, he's not going to play running back, and that's what I think is concerning. At Oregon this year, he did not seem to want to play the slot position, wanted to play running back. He's not going to play running back in the NFL. There's really only one receiver in the NFL right now to compare him to size-wise, and that's Tavon Austin. But I think he's going to be strictly special teams, especially early on. I think it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think somebody will take a flyer on him because of what he can bring to special teams.
Well, the Ducks do have a lot of returners, including Marcus Mariota and Ifo Ekpreolamu, so they'll be good again next year. It'll be interesting, though, to see what happens with DeAnthony Thomas in the NFL draft. We'll have all that for you right here on Campus Insiders Oregon.